Hey tribe, welcome back to the mat and welcome to your Anjaneyasana tutorial. Before we dive right in, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more free yoga. And if you have not joined the online tribe, click the link in the description below and come join us. Come share your practice with us, share in inspiration, inspiring others and gathering inspiration from others. That's about it. So for this tutorial, like I said, we're breaking down Anjaneyasana, which is our low lunge pose. You might want a couple blocks handy for the kind of first option of Anjaneyasana that I'll show you with hands on the ground. Sometimes bringing the hands to the ground can be a little challenging, so having a couple blocks handy is nice for that. Otherwise, a couple sturdy books should work as well. Other than that, you'll want your yoga mat. So go ahead, roll that out, and let's get started. Okay, so Anjaneyasana, low lunge. This posture is it's one of the preparatory poses for Hanumanasana or splits pose. And if you know about the myth behind Anjaneyasana, then you know that according to the myth, before Hanuman was Hanuman, he was Anjaneya. I won't get into the whole story time myth right now, but if you'd like to read it, I will link to a blog post that breaks down Anjaneyasana in writing and with photos, and it has a little blurb about the myth behind Anjaneyasana. So if you prefer actually a written description with photos, feel free to check that out. For this, we're going to start, come into hands and knees, and then bring the right foot up in between the hands. So we'll start with the right foot forward, left foot back. Now, for your Anjaneyasana, I'm going to give you a couple of options. So you can bring the knee up so that it's almost right underneath the hip. Maybe you bring it all the way underneath the hip. And we'll start here with hands on the ground, and this is where a couple of blocks might be nice so that you can find lift in the chest. So you want to bring the gaze forward, a nice long spine. So totally cool to be right here for your Anjaneyasana with the back knee closer towards the front leg. If you'd like to feel more sensation in the left hip flexor, which is one of the benefits of this pose, opening the hip flexors, you will tuck the left toes under and scooch the left knee back, bringing it back down, and then you can untuck the toes. So you'll feel more intense stretch here in the left hip flexor, and that is what makes this a preparatory pose for Hanumanasana for splits. So here we're working on opening that back hip flexor for that pose. And again, the chest is lifted. If you feel okay bringing the hands onto the earth, you can bring hands onto the earth instead of onto your blocks. And so this is kind of your stage 1 for Anjaneyasana. Your stage 2 will be bringing hands onto the thigh. So again, you can choose if you'd like to bring the left knee in a little bit more to take some of the pressure off of the hip flexor, and then bring the hands up onto the right knee. And again, you're looking for lift in the spine. So the crown of the head is reaching up towards the sky. Hands can stay right here on the right thigh, keeping your balance. Press firmly into big toe mound of the front foot, and you can press into the top of the back foot as well. Again, if you'd like to feel more of the opening in the hip flexor, you'll scooch the left knee back, and again, lifting the torso. Now with the left knee back, there's a tendency to sort of dump down into the hips, and then you get this really big arch in the low back, and we're kind of just throwing the hips into this pose. So rather than doing that, gently pull the pubic bone up towards the navel, so turn on the lower belly, finding lift in this pose rather than a dumping down. Still pressing firmly into big toe mound of the right foot and into the top of the left foot. So your stage 3 of this pose will be to lift the arms. If you feel nice and steady in the legs, you lift the arms next to the ears, finding length and lifting here in your Anjaneyasana. And this is your pose. Arms can stay right here at shoulder width distance. Maybe you can bring the palms together to touch, find a little bit more lift. And the gaze is going to be third eye center. So it's a lifted gaze, not necessarily lifting the head up really high. You want to find length here. So it's just a lifting of the gaze up towards the third eye. Go ahead and release down. Begin to bring the hips back towards the left foot and then bring the right leg back so you're in your tabletop once again. And from here, we'll come into the other side. So coming into Anjaneyasana from tabletop is one option. We'll come into the other side from downward facing dog, so you see what that looks like as well. So go ahead and make your way into your downward facing dog. Hips are nice and high. This was probably the wrong shirt for this, but that's okay. From here, we're going to bring the left foot in between the hands. You've got to really pull the belly up and in. I'll do a whole other tutorial on the step up, but the belly's got to pull up and in as you bring the foot forward. And if the foot doesn't make it all the way, totally cool to use the hand and help it. And then the right knee will come down. And again, if it feels like too much on the hip flexor, feel free to bring the knee in, scooch it in a little bit, shorten the stance, and once again, find lift in the chest. So the heart center is shining forward. So maybe you bring the blocks underneath the hands once again so that you can really extend the heart forward and up. I always think about like a Care Bear stare. In poses like this where you're trying to like shine the heart forward. So like Care Bear, stare it up. And again, you can scooch the right knee back if you'd like to feel more in the hip flexor. You can stay right here. This is your stage 1 for your Anjaneyasana. Stage 2 is bringing the hands up onto the thigh. And as you do that, so you can see here that my hips are dumping way down low. I have this big arch in the low back. So pubic bone pulls up towards the navel. Belly, the lower belly firms up and in, so I find lift in this pose. And while maintaining that, after a few breaths, maybe I can shift forward a little bit more, finding more depth and opening in the hip flexor and in the left hip, but maintaining the lower belly pulling up and in. So we're protecting the low back as we do this. And then this is your stage 2. You can stay right here. If you feel steady, arms will lift high. Again, finding lift in this pose. So press down into the feet to help you lift. And you want to be bringing the left hip back in space slightly and the right hip forward so that the hips are square. It can be really easy to kind of let the front hip move forward as the back hip moves back. Try and keep them in one even plane so that both hip points, your 2 headlights, are pointing straight forward. And then again, palms can touch if that feels okay on the shoulders, or you can leave arms at shoulder width distance. Either way. Go ahead and release. And again, you can release into tabletop or downward facing dog. If you're coming into downward facing dog, you'll tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, press the palms down, and then step the left foot back. Coming back into downward facing dog. Go ahead and release knees to the earth. And bring your seat down. So that is your Anjaneyasana. You can also come into Anjaneyasana from standing from like a forward fold, or just standing at the top of your mat, just stepping one foot back and the other. So this is your Anjaneyasana, your low lunge pose. Like I said, it is a preparatory pose for Hanumanasana for splits. It's great for opening in the hip flexors and the quadriceps. It's just a really beautiful pose all around. If you have any questions about this pose, please drop them in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me here on the mat today. Have an awesome rest of your day. Namaste.